Hey there, everybody. So today we're going to be doing a deep dive into brain health,
Oh,
which I know is something that you're super interested in.
yeah.
We've been talking a lot about dementia and ADHD and some of your concerns there.
Yes.
And you sent me that really fascinating interview with Dr. Daniel Amen
Uh-huh.
on the Ritual podcast.
Yeah.
And honestly, when I heard him talking about the fact that he's analyzed over 250,000 brain scans,
Right?
like my jaw kind of dropped.
I know, me too.
That's just a level of experience that is mind-blowing.
It is. It's incredible, isn't it? It's not just like one little study,
Right,
you know?
right.
This is a massive
A massive data set,
data set that he's working with. So, yeah,
which really gives a lot of weight to his perspective.
totally. And you know what I thought was really interesting?
Yeah.
Was his concept of brain envy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we're so quick to envy someone's car or, their vacation photos.
Right.
But, like, what about envying a healthy, high-functioning brain?
Totally.
That's something worth aspiring to for sure.
It's such a good point
Yeah.
and a really good way to reframe our priorities,
Yeah.
especially when you consider the statistics on dementia,
Yeah.
which honestly are kind of frightening.
Right.
When you think about like a 50-50 chance of being diagnosed by age 85.
Yeah.
That's a reality check for sure.
It is a sobering thought for sure.
Yeah.
And it's likely to touch most of us
Yeah.
in some way. But what I found encouraging was Dr. Amen's emphasis on empowerment.
Yeah.
He doesn't believe that we're powerless.
Right.
He argues that you can actually impact your brain health trajectory.
Okay.
And he has this system
Okay.
called Bright Minds.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah, it's an acronym.
Okay.
That represents 11 major risk factors that impact brain health.
Okay. I am all ears because I definitely want to know how I can protect my brain.
For sure.
But before we dive into that, I have a question
Okay.
about the SPECT imaging
Yeah.
that he talks about. It
Yeah.
seems pretty revolutionary,
Yeah.
but I'll be honest, I don't fully understand it. Can you break it down for me? And more importantly,
like-
why is it so important
Yeah.
for like the average person?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So SPEC imaging stands for single photon emission computed tomography.
Okay.
It's a mouthful,
It is a mouth.
but basically it's a way to visualize brain activity.
Okay.
So what they do is they inject a safe radioactive tracer
Uh-huh.
that attaches to blood cells,
Okay.
and then a special camera tracks how it moves through your brain.
So it's like a picture of your brain.
Yeah, areas with more blood flow
Okay.
light up, showing where there's more activity.
Okay.
So Dr. Amen argues that this visual representation
Yeah.
can be really game-changing for patients,
Yeah.
especially when traditional diagnoses haven't really provided
Right.
clear answers.
So it's almost like taking a peek under the hood
Yeah.
and seeing your brain in action.
Exactly.
So I would imagine that for someone who's struggling,
Right.
it would be way more impactful to actually see
Yeah.
a visual representation of what's going on. Uh-huh.
Than to just be told,
Right.
you have this condition.
Exactly. And that's precisely what he found. He shared this story about his first SPECT scan patient,
Oh, wow.
who was a woman who was struggling with suicidal thoughts.
Oh, gosh.
And she had been diagnosed with adult ADD.
Okay.
And she was really resistant to the diagnosis.
Okay.
But when she saw her own brain scan,
Uh-huh.
it changed everything for her.
Wow.
The scan showed that when she tried to concentrate,
Okay.
her frontal lobes basically went dark.
Wow.
And the frontal lobes are the area of the brain
Right.
responsible for focus and decision making.
I see.
So it was like visual proof of what she was experiencing.
Wow. That must have been incredibly validating for her.
Totally.
To actually see that
Yeah.
her struggles weren't just in her head, so to speak,
Right.
but reflected in her brain activity.
Exactly. Her shame and self-doubt just melted away.
Wow.
It wasn't her fault. It was a
Mhm.
physiological issue.
Right.
And this is what Dr. Amen argues is so powerful.
About SPECT imaging,
Okay.
it can help remove that stigma and shame,
Right.
leading to greater compliance with treatment.
I could see how that would be really empowering.
Yeah,
But I know SPECT imaging has its critics.
it does.
Some argue that it's not reliable
Yeah.
or that the interpretations can be subjective. What's
Yeah.
your take on that?
So it's true, there have been criticisms,
Yeah?
but Dr. Amen argues that he doesn't use SPECT imaging in isolation.
Right.
He combines it with detailed patient history,
Okay.
psychological testing, clinical evaluation.
Uh-huh.
It's a piece of the puzzle,
Yeah.
not the whole picture.
Okay.
And it's worth noting that acceptance of SPECT imaging is growing
Okay.
within the medical community.
Interesting. It seems like Dr. Amen is really pushing the boundaries
He is.
of how we think about mental health,
Yeah.
especially his critique of traditional psychiatry's
Yes.
reliance on symptom clusters
Mhm.
without looking at the brain itself.
He believes that relying solely on reported symptoms without considering the underlying biology is like treating chest pain.
Okay.
Without knowing if it's a heart attack or indigestion,
Right.
you're treating the symptom
Uh-huh.
without understanding the cause.
It makes sense.
And this is particularly important when you consider that last year alone,
Yeah.
a staggering 337 million antidepressant prescriptions were written.
Whoa, 337 million.
Yes.
That's a huge number.
It is. And often these medications are prescribed
Yeah.
without fully exploring potential root causes
Right.
or addressing lifestyle factors.
Okay.
So Dr. Emin believes we need to dig deeper
Uh-huh.
and investigate possibilities like traumatic brain injury infections,
Sure.
inflammation, things like that.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like treating the whole person.
Yes.
Not just the symptoms.
Exactly.
And it reminds me of the story he told about Adriana, a
Yes.
teenager
Yeah.
who was misdiagnosed with schizophrenia.
Her story is a perfect example
Yeah.
of the importance of investigating underlying causes.
Yeah.
So Adriana went from being a normal teenager
Mm-hmm.
to experiencing hallucinations and aggression,
Wow.
ultimately leading to multiple hospitalizations
Oh, my God.
and a misdiagnosis of schizophrenia.
It's heartbreaking to imagine what she and her family went through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what's remarkable is that when she finally had a SPECT scan
Right?
at Dr. Emin's clinic,
Okay.
it revealed severe brain inflammation.
Wow.
And further testing showed that she actually had Lyme disease.
So her symptoms were completely misattributed.
They were.
Yeah.
And think about the implications.
Yeah.
Instead of being labeled with a potentially lifelong mental illness,
Right.
she received treatment for Lyme disease
Uh-huh.
and within a year made a full recovery.
Wow.
She went on to graduate college,
Wow.
get a master's degree.
That's an incredible turnaround.
It is.
It really highlights the importance of
Yeah,
getting to the root cause,
for sure.
especially when mental health is involved.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about the need for a more holistic approach.
Uh.
But I'm still curious about those 11 risk factors.
Okay.
You mentioned the Bright Minds acronym.
Yes.
I'm ready to unpack that now.
Let's do it. It's a fantastic roadmap
Oh?
to better brain health.
Okay.
And luckily, there are things we can do
Okay, good.
to address each risk factor.
Okay.
So starting with B, which stands for blood flow.
Oh.
Dr. Amen says that low blood flow is one of the strongest predictors
Really?
of Alzheimer's disease.
Oh, wow. Okay, that definitely got my attention.
Yeah,
So I imagine there are ways to improve blood flow, right?
there are.
Please tell me there are.
There absolutely are. And one of the most effective ways is exercise.
Yeah.
He particularly emphasizes coordination exercises,
Okay.
like table tennis or pickleball.
Pickleball. That's kind of unexpected.
Right.
I know it's all the rage right now,
It is.
but I didn't realize it was good for the brain.
It might sound surprising,
Yeah.
but activities that challenge your coordination actually activate your cerebellum, which is the part of the brain responsible for motor control,
Uh-huh.
which then helps activate other parts of your brain.
So all those people obsessed with pickleball
I know.
are unknowingly boosting their brain health?
Right.
I love it. It makes me want to grab a paddle and hit the court.
I know. Me too.
What about the other letters in the acronym?
Okay, so R stands for retirement or aging.
Okay.
It turns out that high iron levels
Okay.
can accelerate aging.
Oh,
So he suggests something as simple as donating blood regularly
okay.
could be beneficial.
Got it.
Stands for inflammation,
Okay.
omega-3 fatty acids, and good gum health.
Wait, gum health.
I know it sounds crazy.
I had no idea that was connected to brain health.
It's a fascinating link.
Wow.
G stands for genetics.
Okay.
So obviously we all inherit genes that influence our risk
Right.
for various conditions,
Yeah.
including things like the ApoE4 gene, which is associated with a higher risk of Alzheimer's.
Right. But I've also heard that even with a genetic predisposition,
Yes,
that lifestyle choices still have a huge impact.
absolutely. He emphasizes that point strongly.
Yeah.
You're not a prisoner of your genes.
Right.
H is for head trauma.
Okay.
This one's a bit concerning.
Yeah.
Because even what seem like minor head injuries
Uh-huh.
can have long-term impact on brain health.
Okay, now I'm really starting to worry.
Yeah,
I've definitely had my share of bumps and bruises over the years.
I hear.
What about the rest?
Okay, so T stands for toxins.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we're exposed to toxins everywhere,
Right.
from our environment to everyday products.
Yeah.
So Dr. Amen suggests using the Think Dirty app,
Oh, yeah.
which helps assess the safety of your personal care products.
Oh, okay.
M represents mental health.
Okay.
Things like depression, anxiety, unresolved trauma
Yeah.
can all impact the brain.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
It is.
What about the last three?
Okay, I stands for immune system.
Okay.
Maintaining healthy vitamin D levels is crucial
Okay.
for overall health, including brain health.
Yep.
N is for neurohormones.
Okay.
This emphasizes the importance of getting your hormone levels checked regularly. He's expressed particular concern by the trend of low testosterone he's observing in young men.
Interesting.
And finally, D is for diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
High blood sugar is incredibly damaging to the brain.
Wow. That's a lot to think about.
It is. It's a lot.
It's overwhelming,
Yeah.
but also empowering
Uh-huh.
to realize that we actually have some control
Yeah.
over these factors.
Yeah.
This is really making me think about all the choices I make and how they impact my brain health.
That's the key takeaway. It's not about being perfect.
Right.
It's about being informed and
Right.
proactive.
Yeah.
And on that note, I know you're especially interested in learning more about ADHD.
Yes.
So let's move on to that topic now.
I'm ready to dive in.
Yeah.
I shared with you that I've been wondering if I might have ADHD.
Okay.
And I'm curious to get your insights based on Dr. Amen's work.
Sure.
It seems like there's a lot more to it than just being hyperactive. Yes.
Which is kind of what I always assumed.
Right. It's much more complex than that stereotype.
Okay.
And he actually challenges that common misconception that it's
Okay.
all about hyperactivity.
Right.
He describes what he calls the 5 homework symptoms
Okay.
of ADHD,
Okay, tell me more.
which are often more subtle but equally impactful.
I'm definitely curious
Yeah.
if any of these resonate with me.
Okay, so the first one is short attention span, but not for everything.
Okay.
People with ADHD typically have a short attention span for things that are routine,
Okay.
everyday tasks,
Uh-huh.
like paperwork chores, even as the name suggests homework.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Okay.
I hyper-focus on things that really interest me.
Right.
But when it comes to mundane tasks,
Uh-huh.
my mind starts to wander.
Okay.
What else is on the list?
Okay, the second symptom is distractibility.
Okay.
So people with ADHD tend to see, feel, and sense too much.
Okay.
The world comes at them fast.
Yeah.
So it's hard to filter out distractions.
And stay focused.
That one's less me. I'm actually pretty good at blocking out distractions when I need to.
Okay.
So,
The third one is disorganization,
okay.
both with time and physical space.
Okay.
So this could look like messy rooms,
Okay.
cluttered desks,
Uh-huh.
difficulty managing schedules.
Nope, not me. I thrive on organization and order.
Yeah.
What are the last two?
Okay, so the fourth is procrastination,
Okay.
putting things off until the last minute,
Uh-huh.
often until someone is upset
Okay.
or deadlines are looming.
Uh-huh.
And finally, there's impulse control,
Okay.
which can show up as saying or doing things you later regret.
Okay. I have to admit that procrastination one hits close to home.
Okay.
I'm a master procrastinator,
Okay.
which I know can be frustrating for those around me.
I can imagine.
But so far, it's only 2 out of 5.
Okay.
I'm still not convinced I have ADHD.
Well, it's important to remember that Dr. Ammon believes there are actually 7 types of ADHD.
7 types.
Yes.
That's fascinating.
Each with its own unique set of characteristics.
Wow.
And he emphasizes that brain scans
Yeah.
can be extremely helpful in identifying the specific type.
Okay. Tell me more about these 7 types.
Okay, so the first type is what most people think of
Right.
when they hear ADHD.
Right.
It's called classic ADHD,
Okay.
and it involves those hallmark traits:
Yeah.
short attention span, distractibility, hyperactivity,
Okay.
and impulsivity.
Yeah. That's definitely not me. I'm not hyperactive or impulsive.
Yeah.
What are the other types?
Okay, so the second is called inattentive ADHD.
Okay.
So these individuals may not be hyperactive or impulsive,
Uh-huh.
but they struggle with focus
Okay.
and often underperform in school or at work.
That one's slightly closer to my experience.
Okay.
But I'm not sure.
All right.
Okay. Tell me about the other 5.
All right, so there's over-focused ADHD,
Okay.
where individuals can hyperfocus, but they have difficulty shifting their attention.
Okay.
So they can get stuck
Yeah.
on certain thoughts or behaviors.
Yeah.
Make them prone to arguments, holding grudges.
Okay. That one is definitely not me.
Yeah.
I'm all about letting things go.
All right.
What are the other ones?
So the fourth type is limbic ADHD.
Okay.
This involves the typical ADHD traits, but with an added layer of moodiness, negativity,
Okay.
low energy.
Okay.
So it's like ADHD with a touch of mild depression.
Gotcha.
Then there's temporal lobe ADHD,
Okay.
which is often caused by a head injury.
Uh-huh.
These individuals may experience mood instability, irritability,
Okay.
memory
Yeah.
problems.
Okay.
Then there's ring of fire ADHD.
Ring of fire.
I know it's a very dramatic name.
Okay.
But basically, this is where the brain, instead of being underactive, is actually overactive,
Okay.
often due to inflammation.
So it's like the brain is in overdrive.
Exactly.
Okay.
And finally, there's anxious ADHD,
Okay.
where anxiety is a prominent feature,
Okay.
often leading to procrastination,
Right.
perfectionism.
Yeah. Well, I do have a bit of a perfectionist streak. Okay.
And I definitely procrastinate,
Mm-hmm.
but overall, I'm still not seeing a perfect fit.
That's completely understandable. It's important to remember these are just broad categories.
Right.
Everyone experiences ADHD differently,
Yeah.
and there can be a lot of overlap between types.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Dr. Amen is such a strong advocate for brain scans.
Yes.
It seems like they could be really helpful
Uh-huh.
in clarifying the specific type of ADHD
Yep.
and guiding treatment.
Exactly. They can provide a level of personalized insight
Yeah.
that traditional diagnostic methods might miss.
I'm definitely starting to see the value in that.
Good.
It's like getting a customized roadmap for your brain.
It is. And speaking of roadmaps,
Yeah.
I know you're also interested in Dr. Amen's work on raising mentally strong kids,
Yes, absolutely.
especially given your own passion for parenting.
That's a topic I'm always eager to learn more about.
Well, he co-authored a book on this very topic
Okay.
with Dr. Charles Fay, president of the Love and Logic Institute.
And they highlight the alarming rise
Yeah.
in mental health issues among children.
That's a huge concern for me,
Yeah,
especially with all the pressures kids are facing today.
absolutely.
What are some of the key principles they recommend?
Well, one of the most important is empowering children to solve their own problems.
Okay.
So Dr. Amen shared this story about how his wife stopped battling with their daughter
Okay.
over homework.
Uh-huh.
She basically told her,
Yeah.
I'm not going to remind you anymore,
Wow.
and you'll have to accept the consequences
Right.
if it's not done.
Wow. That's a bold move. It sounds terrifying,
It does.
but I also really admire her courage.
Yeah,
Did it work?
it did. The daughter initially resisted,
Okay.
but she quickly learned to take responsibility
Wow.
for her own work.
That's amazing.
She ended up with a 4.2 GPA in high school
Wow.
and has been a responsible and self-sufficient young adult.
That's so awesome. It seems counterintuitive, but it makes sense.
It does.
If we're constantly rescuing our kids,
Right.
they never learn to rely on themselves.
Exactly. It's about building their self-esteem
Right.
and their self-efficacy by giving them the space to learn and grow.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
What other principles did they discuss?
So another key principle is fostering attachment through time and listening.
Okay.
He actually argues that parents talk way too much.
Ouch. I feel personally called out.
I know.
I definitely have a tendency to interrupt.
It's a common habit,
Yeah.
but it can really hinder connection.
Right.
He recommends a practice of active listening,
Okay.
where you truly focus on hearing and understanding what your child is saying
Yeah.
without interrupting or lecturing.
Okay.
So he suggests spending at least 20 minutes a day with your child doing something they want to do
Okay.
without giving commands, asking questions, or offering directions.
Just being present and attentive, that sounds lovely,
It does.
but also challenging.
It can be.
It's hard to silence that inner voice that always wants to chime in.
It is, but it's so powerful for building that connection and letting your child know you're truly interested in them.
I'm definitely going to work on that.
Good.
But it brings up another challenge that feels particularly relevant today.
Okay.
Parenting in the digital age.
Oh, yeah.
How do you balance these principles
Oh,
with the constant presence of devices
yeah.
and the addictive nature of social media and video games? It feels like an uphill battle.
It's a huge challenge for sure.
Yeah.
Dr. Amen recommends delaying device access
Okay.
as long as possible
Uh-huh.
and then carefully supervising usage.
Okay.
But he also suggests something really interesting,
What's that?
explaining to kids how these companies use neuroscience to addict their brains,
Wow.
essentially stealing their minds.
Yeah.
It's about empowering them
Uh-huh.
to make informed choices.
I love that.
Right.
Instead of just being like, no, and coming across as a Luddite,
Right.
you're giving them the tools to understand why these limits are important.
Exactly. It's about fostering critical thinking.
Right. Because let's be real, these devices are designed to be addictive.
Oh, they are.
Hmm.
They're like slot machines in our pockets,
Totally.
constantly vying for our attention.
It's a vicious cycle.
It is.
and so hard to break free from.
Yeah.
This has been incredibly eye-opening.
Good.
I feel like I have a whole new understanding of brain health
Yeah.
and the many factors that can impact it.
It is a complex landscape.
Yeah.
But understanding the terrain
Mm-hmm.
is the first step to navigating it successfully.
Totally.
And this is a great place to pause for now.
I agree. We've covered so much ground already.
We have.
But I'm eager to hear more.
Okay.
There's still so much to explore,
Right.
like Dr. Amen's tiny habits for brain health
Yes.
and his strategies for reframing negative thoughts.
Exactly. We'll dive deeper into those topics.
Okay.
Part 2.
Sounds good. I can't wait.
Until then, keep those brains healthy.
I will. Talk to you soon. Welcome back. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
But after that last discussion, I'm feeling a little brain envy myself.
Right.
It's incredible how much power we have
Yeah.
to shape our own brain health.
It's empowering, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And speaking of empowering,
Yes.
Dr. Amen talked about something called tiny habits for brain health. I love that concept.
Me too.
It's like those small, seemingly insignificant actions
Right.
that could actually have a big impact over time.
Yeah.
So tiny habits feel doable
Yeah.
even when life is crazy busy.
Totally.
Can you give me some examples from the podcast that really resonated with you?
Well, one that stuck with me is starting each day with a simple affirmation.
Okay.
Today is going to be a great day.
Okay.
It might sound cheesy,
Yeah.
but he argues that it sets the positive tone
Right.
and primes your brain to look for the good.
You know, I've actually tried that before.
Really?
And I was surprised
Yeah.
by how much of a difference it made.
That's awesome.
It really is like you're choosing to see the world through a more optimistic lens.
Yeah.
What are some other tiny habits he suggests?
So another one is asking yourself throughout the day,
Okay.
is this good for my brain or bad for it?
Okay.
So he used to play this game with his daughter, Chloe.
Okay.
He'd say, blueberries good for your brain or bad?
Cute.
And she'd give a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Hitting a soccer ball with your head, good or bad?
Right.
Thumbs down.
I love that.
It's such a fun way to engage kids
Yeah.
in those lessons about brain health.
It reminds me of those brain food posters that they used to have in elementary school.
Totally.
So much more impactful
Right.
than just lecturing.
Yeah, and it's something we can all do regardless of age.
Right.
Just becoming more mindful
Mm-hmm.
of how our choices affect our brain
Right.
is a huge step forward.
Absolutely. It's like you are what you eat, but
Yeah.
for the brain,
Right.
it's all connected. But let's be real.
Yeah.
None of us are perfect.
Yeah.
I know I slip up sometimes.
Yeah.
So is it really about being perfect with these tiny habits?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's not about being perfect.
Okay.
It's about making small, sustainable changes that add up over time.
Right.
He emphasizes progress, not perfection, is
Right.
the key.
Okay. That's reassuring because sometimes I feel like I'm doing everything wrong.
Yeah,
It's good to remember that every small step counts.
totally.
So speaking of small steps,
Yes.
Dr. Amen also talked about a really powerful evening habit
Okay.
for boosting happiness and resilience.
Yes.
And I'm always up for anything that boosts happiness.
Me too.
So tell me more.
Okay, so this one is deceptively simple,
Okay.
but incredibly effective.
Okay.
Each night before bed,
Yeah.
he reflects on what went well today.
Okay.
He goes hour by hour,
Wow.
looking for the bright spots,
Okay.
no matter how small.
I love that.
Right.
It's like creating a highlight reel of the day and
Yeah.
focusing on the positive moments
Yeah.
instead of dwelling on the negative.
Yeah. I tend to do the opposite.
Me too.
I ruminate on what went wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So no wonder I'm not always brimming with joy.
Right.
Right. It's so easy to get caught in that negativity loop.
Totally. Especially with everything going on in the world.
Yeah.
But intentionally shifting our focus
Yeah.
to the positive
Right.
can have a profound effect.
Yeah.
There's actually research showing that this practice can significantly increase your overall happiness in just 3 weeks.
3 weeks. That's amazing. I'm definitely going to try that.
It's worth a shot.
Yeah.
And it's not just about happiness.
Yeah.
It's also about building resilience.
Uh-huh.
So by focusing on what went well,
Right.
we train our brains to be more optimistic
Okay.
and better equipped to handle challenges.
Okay. I'm sold. That's going on my to-do list tonight.
Awesome.
So Dr. Amen also talked about reframing negative thoughts, which I think is a skill we could all benefit from.
Totally.
I'm terrible at getting stuck in those negative thought patterns.
You.
So what specific strategies did he recommend?
So he's a big fan of Byron Katie's work.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard of her?
Yeah, she's the one with the 4-question process
Let's-
for challenging your thoughts.
Exactly.
I've read about it, but I've never actually tried it.
It's a powerful tool.
Okay.
You basically write down a negative thought
Okay.
that's bothering you,
Yeah.
and then you ask yourself these 4 questions.
Okay.
Is it true?
Okay.
Can you absolutely know that it's true?
Right.
How do you react when you believe that thought?
Okay.
And who would you be without the thought?
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like holding those negative thoughts up to a mirror
Yeah.
and seeing if they can stand up to scrutiny.
Totally.
So often we just accept them as truth
Yes.
without questioning them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he argues that this process can be incredibly liberating
Okay.
when we really examine those negative thoughts.
Yeah.
We often realize they're not as true
Right.
or as solid as we believe, and they lose their power over us.
That's so empowering.
It is. It's like taking back control of our minds
Right.
and choosing to focus on more positive
Yeah.
and supportive thoughts.
You also mentioned this interesting idea of giving your mind a name.
Oh, yes.
Can you explain that one?
Yes.
Yeah.
So he calls it taming the raccoon mind.
Okay.
So he had a pet raccoon
Oh.
when he was 16
Okay.
that he absolutely adored,
Uh-huh.
but it was a total troublemaker.
Okay.
It would get into everything,
Right.
create messes, just generally cause chaos.
Yeah.
And he realized that his mind
Yeah.
was a lot like that raccoon,
Mm-hmm.
constantly chattering,
Mm-hmm.
creating drama, often leading him astray.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
I think we all have a bit of a raccoon mind in us.
We
That voice that's always second-guessing and worrying and stirring up trouble.
Exactly. So when his mind starts to spiral,
Yeah.
he imagines flipping that raccoon over
Okay.
and tickling its belly,
Oh.
which makes it purr. It's a way of separating from those negative thoughts and regaining control.
That's brilliant.
It's such a playful way to deal with it.
Yeah, it is.
It reminds us that we are not our thoughts.
Right.
We have thoughts,
Yeah.
but we can choose which ones to believe
Right.
and which ones to let go of.
Right.
We have that power.
It's like being the CEO of our own minds.
Exactly.
And a good CEO makes wise and informed decisions right.
Right. Speaking of making decisions,
Yes.
he shared a rule he follows that I found really helpful.
What's that?
It's called the Rule of 12.
The Rule of 12.
Okay.
I'm intrigued.
So he says that whenever he's doing something important,
Okay.
like filming a TV special or writing a book or
Yeah.
even just going on a trip,
Okay.
he expects things to go wrong.
Yeah.
It's just part of life.
Oh, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I always have that moment,
Yeah.
usually at the airport,
Uh-huh.
where I'm like, okay, what's going to go wrong this time?
Yeah, it's inevitable.
Right.
But instead of getting frustrated or giving up, he decided to embrace it.
Okay.
He doesn't let himself get upset until the 13th thing goes wrong.
I love that. It's
Yeah.
such a pragmatic approach.
Yeah.
It's like building that tolerance
Uh-huh.
for frustration
Yeah.
and accepting that challenges are just part of the process.
Exactly. And it's not about being passive or letting people walk all over you.
Right.
It's about choosing how you respond
Yeah.
to those inevitable bumps in the road.
So it's like shifting that perspective from why me
Yeah.
to, okay, what can I learn from this?
Exactly. And that leads to another one of his mottos.
Okay.
We win or we learn.
I like that.
It's a great reminder that even when things don't go as planned,
Yeah.
there's always an opportunity for growth.
It's like reframing failure as feedback.
Precisely. And it's a mindset we can apply to all areas of our lives,
Right.
not just our brain health.
Right.
We can choose to see challenges as opportunities
Yeah.
to learn and grow.
This has been such a fascinating exploration.
It has been.
I feel like I have a whole new toolkit
Yeah.
for taking care of my brain
Uh-huh.
and cultivating a more positive mindset.
I think the biggest takeaway is that we have more power
Yeah.
than we realize
Right.
to change our brains for the better.
It's not about being perfect.
Exactly.
It's about being informed and proactive
Yes,
and compassionate with ourselves.
absolutely.
I love that. It's about embracing the journey
Yeah.
with all its ups and downs and remembering that we're all works in progress.
Exactly. And speaking of progress,
Yeah.
in part 3, we'll dive into some specific strategies
Right.
for improving focus and attention,
Yes.
which I know is something you're particularly interested in exploring.
I can't wait. I'm already feeling inspired
Good.
and ready to put some of these strategies into practice.
Awesome.
Welcome back for the final part of our brain health deep dive.
Okay.
After all this talk about tiny habits and reframing negative thoughts,
Yeah.
I'm feeling really optimistic about our ability to change our brains for the better.
It's definitely encouraging, isn't it?
It is.
And it reminds me of something else that really struck me in Dr. Amen's interview.
Okay.
His discussion about the link between ADHD and addiction.
Oh, yeah.
It's a connection that often flies under the radar,
Right.
but makes a lot of sense when you consider the role of dopamine.
That's right.
Yeah.
He talked about how people with ADHD often have lower levels of dopamine,
Yeah.
which is a neurotransmitter involved in motivation and reward.
Uh-huh.
So they may be more prone to seeking out activities
Yeah.
that provide that quick dopamine hit.
Exactly.
Right.
It's like they're trying to self-medicate
Right.
that dopamine deficiency.
Right.
And it's not just about drugs or alcohol.
Right.
He pointed out that things like video games, social media gambling, even shopping
Right.
can become addictive for people with ADHD.
That's a great point. Anything that provides that intermittent reinforcement, that unpredictable reward,
Yep.
it can really hijack the brain's reward system.
Totally.
I've definitely noticed that pattern in my own life,
Oh, yeah.
especially with social media.
Yeah.
It's like I get a little rush
Right.
every time I get a notification.
It's so subtle, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And these platforms are designed to exploit those vulnerabilities.
Totally.
So it's why it's so important to be aware of the potential risks.
Right.
And to develop healthy coping mechanisms.
Absolutely. And that brings me to a topic I'm really curious to explore further, strategies for improving focus and attention.
Okay.
I know you've done a lot of research in this area,
Yes.
and I'm eager to hear Dr. Amen's take as well.
Sure.
What are some of his top recommendations?
Well, he emphasized that it's not just about willpower or trying harder.
Okay.
It's about addressing both the biological and psychological aspects
Uh-huh.
of attention challenges.
Okay. So it's not just about buckling down
Right.
and forcing yourself to focus.
Exactly.
It's about creating the right conditions
Yeah.
for your brain to thrive.
Exactly. He talked about the importance of exercise,
Okay.
particularly coordination exercises like table tennis or, you guessed it,
Pickleball.
pickleball.
That's 3 for 3.
I know.
On the pickleball recommendation,
Right.
I'm definitely getting the message. It seems like this is more than just a fitness trend. It's a legitimate brain-boosting activity.
It really does seem that way.
It does.
He explained that these types of activities strengthen the cerebellum,
Right.
which plays a key role in attention and coordination.
It makes sense. It's not just about physical fitness. It's
Right.
about brain fitness, too.
Exactly.
What other lifestyle factors did he emphasize?
He also talked about optimizing sleep,
Right.
which is crucial for cognitive function,
Mm-hmm.
managing stress levels,
Okay.
and minimizing exposure to toxins,
Right.
which can impair brain function.
Those are all great foundational practices.
Yeah.
But what about in the moment when you're really struggling to focus? What are some tips for those times when your mind is just all over the place?
So he suggests creating a distraction-free environment,
Okay.
which can be as simple as putting your phone on silent
Right.
or closing unnecessary tabs on your computer.
Okay.
He also recommends breaking down tasks
Mm-hmm.
into smaller, more manageable chunks
Okay.
and using visual aids,
Yeah.
like timers or checklists to stay on track.
Those are great practical tips. I'm a big fan of to-do lists,
Uh-huh.
and I found that setting a timer
Yeah.
can really help me stay focused,
Yeah.
especially when I'm procrastinating.
It's all about finding what works for you.
Right.
He also recommends exploring mindfulness techniques
Okay.
like meditation or
Rare.
deep breathing exercises.
Okay.
These practices can be incredibly helpful
Mm-hmm.
in calming the mind and improving focus.
I've dabbled in meditation,
Okay.
and I found it really helpful for managing stress and anxiety.
Yeah,
It makes sense that it would also have benefits for focus and attention.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's also emerging research on the potential benefits of neurofeedback.
Neurofeedback. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
How does that work?
So it involves using sensors to monitor brainwave activity
Okay.
and then providing feedback,
Yeah.
often in the form of visual or auditory cues,
Okay.
to help the individual learn to control those brainwaves.
Wow, that's incredible.
It is.
It's like giving your brain a workout.
Right.
And makes me think of all the ways we can optimize our physical health
Uh-huh.
through exercise and nutrition.
Yeah.
It seems like we're just scratching the surface of what's possible
Totally.
with brain health.
I agree. It's an exciting frontier.
It is.
And, of course, we can't forget that medication
Right.
can also be a helpful tool
Yeah.
for some individuals with attention challenges.
Right.
So it's important to work with a qualified healthcare professional
Yeah.
to determine the best course of treatment.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I've gained a much deeper understanding of ADHD, the factors that can impact focus and attention,
Hmm.
and the many ways we can support our brains to thrive.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.
Likewise.
And I think it's important to remember that it's a journey,
Right.
not a destination.
Right.
There's always more to learn
Yeah.
and new strategies to discover.
So true. It's about being curious, experimenting,
Uh-huh.
and finding what works best for us as
Exactly.
individuals.
You remember, be kind to yourself along the way.
Right.
Celebrate your progress, no matter how small.
This deep dive has been incredibly valuable.
Good.
I feel equipped with knowledge and strategies
Yeah.
to not only improve my own brain health,
Uh-huh.
but to support those around me.
That's wonderful to hear. And remember, you're not alone on this journey.
Right?
There's a whole community of people who are passionate about brain health
Yes.
and eager to share what they've learned.
Thanks for joining me on this incredible deep dive.
My pleasure.
I feel inspired and ready to put all of this into practice. Until next time, keep those brains healthy and happy.
Absolutely. And as you go about your day, think about this.
Okay.
If you could design your ideal brain health routine, what would it look like? What small changes could you make today to start building that routine?